So, I'm going to try to review this without as many slap jokes as humanly possible. We'll see how this works. So, Bad Boys Ride or Die is the fourth Bad Boys movie. Even though Bad Boys for Life was the third movie, it would have made more sense to call this one Bad Boys for Life, but I digress. I think a lot of other people have made that joke. So, Bad Boys Ride or Die is directed by the directors of the last Bad Boys movie, and once again features Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, who return as Marcus and Mike. They are caught in this conspiracy to frame their former captain, played by Joe Pantoliano, and basically now they're caught in this whole thing where they're accused of being corrupt cops and such, and now they have to take down the people who are framing them and such. So I'm gonna be honest, even before all the Will Smith drama that took place 2 years ago, I've never been a big fan of the Bad Boys franchise. I think the last Bad Boys movie to come out, I gave like a mixed to positive review. I said that one was kind of fun, definitely a lot more serious than some of the other Bad Boys movies, but I've not been a fan of them. Like, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith are good in their roles, but I just didn't really care for the generic story, and I just felt like it didn't really do much for me outside of their chemistry. So I feel like if you really enjoy the Bad Boys movies, you might enjoy this one as well. I guess it kind of depends on if you like last one. I guess a lot of people didn't like last one, which ironically I thought was just okay. But this one to me is like it's about the same. Definitely kind of more old schoolish in a way, but I can recognize this movie is fun. I can recognize this movie is like not trying to be awards baity and such, but I can recognize that it's supposed to be a good time. So let's start off the positives in this movie. First off, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence still do really well in their performances. Like Will Smith is a little more reserved in this movie because of some of the things that kind of happened in the last movie, and also some things that kind of happened in this movie. I don't know if it's like because of the natural progression of his character, or maybe because of the perception of Will Smith now, but I definitely thought that was interesting. Martin Lawrence does a lot of the heavy lifting with the comedy a bit, like what he goes through in this movie. At times it's pretty funny. Sometimes they kind of just drop the ball completely. It's like, oh. But their chemistry is still really good throughout the entire movie, and it's like, you still buy them as friends and such, so they're really good in this movie. There are a few laughs here and there. There are some really cool moments here and there where it's like, I mean, some of the jokes that you don't see in the trailer, they're not as funny, but some of the jokes you kind of don't see in the trailer, they do get a laugh once in a while. Like, there's one scene after a big shootout that Martin Lawrence and Will Smith kind of watch from, somewhere else, and what Martin Lawrence says at the end of that is like, okay, that was pretty funny. And there are definitely some laughs here and there. There are some action sequences that are pretty cool. There's one in a prison involving Will Smith's son in this movie, which I thought was really fun. It was really over the top and ridiculous and such. It's like, okay, that was fun. There's also a scene involving one of the main characters' house, and their family and such. And Martin Lawrence's son-in-law actually becomes involved with it. It's like, at first when I saw him in Bad Boys 2, I was like, who's this guy? It's like, okay, fine, whatever. And then it just took me a while to realize, oh, that's the same guy in Bad Boys for Life. And so he comes back in Bad Boys Ride or Die. It's like, okay, now I kind of see it now, and hopefully they kind of use him a lot more in this movie. They don't, but it's kind of cool to have a moment. And I definitely do feel like it's more old school Bad Boys in the sense that it's like it's not trying to be like, dramatic and such. It's not being like trying to be like this serious storyline. Like Bad Boys for Life had a little bit more of a serious storyline compared to the other two movies. And this one definitely feels more old school, asking in terms of its storyline and such. So it's like, okay, that's fine. And again, I recognize this movie's not meant to be Oscar bait. It's not supposed to be an Oscar caliber movie or anything. And when you kind of like turn your brain off, it can be fun. Like there are times where it's like I kind of forgot. I was like, oh yeah, I'm watching a movie. I'm kind of having a good enough time to kind of recommend it. But there's some things that I just didn't care for in this movie. First off, not every joke in this movie works. Sometimes like, oh, come on, just move on already. Or there's kind of a reoccurring joke where it's like, the more times you tell this joke, it's not really that funny. But then again, that's kind of something you see in all the Bad Boys movies and such. And also, there's some characters in this movie that didn't really do too much for me. Like, there are some characters from the last movie who came back, didn't really care for them that time, didn't really care for them this time. There's even a revelation between two of the characters. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. You're not really going to do anything with this, so I'm not going to care a whole lot. As well as some of the new characters, I didn't really care for them too much. Like, Eric Dane is the main villain in this movie. I didn't really like his villain in this movie. He kind of didn't really have much of a personality. His character, I feel like if his character was more like a 90s-esque villain, like something from, the era when the original Bad Boys came out, I would have enjoyed his villain a lot more. But I just didn't care. And also, there's a twist involving another new character in this movie. Wasn't surprised. Kind of boring, if I'm being honest. A bunch of the other characters that are introduced in this movie I didn't really care for, like Captain's daughter. I was like, I didn't care for her. I didn't think her character was very interesting, and her character is also kind of an idiot in this movie. I don't understand some of the things she does in this movie. And some action sequences I didn't care for. Like some were pretty cool and some were pretty fun, intense, like the prison one and one of the houses and such. That was fun. But then there's one in elevator, which at first I thought was kind of cool, but also at the same time you kind of don't really get to see too much of it because they kind of like move the camera around a lot, and it's just kind of hard to see at times. It's like, are these actors actually doing it? It just doesn't really look like the actors are really doing it. I mean, there's a few fun drone shots here and there. It's like, okay, this is kind of fun. Michael Bay is Michael Bay directed the original too. Is like, he did a bunch of drone shots in the ambulance, so why not? So I guess we have this now. So Bad Boys Ride or Die. Even though there are some good performances here and there, particularly from Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, some laughs here and there. Some action sequences are pretty cool, and definitely the old school feel to it, and definitely a movie where it's like, yeah, I turned my brain off and I kind of enjoyed it a little bit. There are just times where it's like the jokes just did not work for me. Some of the characters I just didn't care for. Really didn't get much of a interaction with them really, or that some of the action sequences aren't particularly great. If you enjoyed the other three Bad Boys movies, I would say, yeah, you'll probably enjoy this movie as much. If you're like me and your history of the Bad Boys franchise is just hit or miss, like Bad Boys 1 is okay, Bad Boys 2 is not good, and then Bad Boys for Life was like fine for me. This one is more, it's fine. Like I would kind of recommend it because like, yeah, you can turn your brain off, kind of enjoy it enough. I'll give Bad Boys Ride or Die 2.5 out of 4 stars. Stream it. So, what's your favorite buddy cop comedy, action comedy, and such? Comment down below. Subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.